Present.
Mr. Richard Bell.
Here.
Mr. David Bradley.
I'm here, and Larry just made up a whole slew of stuff. The meeting actually did occur, and I don't know what he's lying about or why, but he really should not be dishonest with the public.
Please move forward, Ms. Carpenter.
Mr. Nathan Foeller.
Present.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Present.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik. Mrs. Gail Mahalik. Mrs. Rita Spinelli.
Here.
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
Present.
Mr. Larry Stark.
Here.
Rebecca, can you please try to get a hold of Gail? Because I know she was trying to get into the executive session and she was being blocked, as Joy and I at the beginning of the executive session was also blocked from entering the meeting that was shown on Zoom, but we were not allowed to enter the room until approved by the host, which apparently was the superintendent. So can, I know I asked Gail why she, hold on, excuse me, sir, I'm speaking.
Please don't again make
I'm speaking, sir. I know I'm speaking, but I'll pull a Kamala Harris. I'm speaking. So, but can we please try to get a hold of Gail? Because I know I spoke to her and she wanted to join the meeting, but apparently she was blocked as well. I think someone should reach out to her and make sure that she's able to attend.
reach out. I mean,
No, we can. It's our administration. We should make sure we're doing it. And the reality is,
Mr. Stern,
wait a second. She's a board member and she wants to participate.
There is no, they are checking right now to see if there's any correspondence from Mrs. Mahalik.
Well, we do have correspondence from Ms. Mahalik. She told us that in the executive session that she was not allowed to participate.
You didn't report to the other folks.
I'm reporting it, sir. I'm reporting it.
And if you were blocked, then every other board member was blocked.
No, sir.
The meeting started at 6:30 p.m. this evening. I'd like to.
No, sir. No, sir. And Joy, can you please iterate what's going on there? Because it's happened to her too.
I was also allowed into the meeting at the very moment Mr. Bradley was.
So I just texted Gail, and she is interested in being part of this meeting.
Thank you, Joy. And did you have trouble getting into the executive session on time, or did you get in late?
I'm not sure what time it was. I activated it, and I had to wait to enter.
And did you get a notice saying that you were not allowed to enter till the host allowed you to enter?
The message said something like that.
Yeah, and so to have that host block the entrance of individual board members
Bradley, it wasn't
is not appropriate.
to make sure that people were permitted that were supposed to be into the exec session. In the event someone forwarded the information to someone outside of the group, we did it then. Everyone began being let in at 6:30. There was no special meeting, so you could stop trying to portray this vision that there was.
Well, hold on a second. So you're telling me you did prevent people from coming in until, how did you verify them, sir?
We look at your name.
Okay, but reality is you only gave invitations to certain people. If they showed up, their name would be on the file and you would be able to remove them. So I think you're not really telling the truth here, sir. There's a term in the world called the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So now for the first time in your life, you're recognizing that the truth is required of you.
It's an improper thing that we're going to have to handle somehow this evening.
But you're going to have to handle.
Going to be in a mood that will just drag our meeting to the basement.
Or no drag it to the basement. Let the duly elected members attend. What is please tell us the call-in number. Let her call in. Please tell us, announce the call-in number. We'll write it down, make sure it gets to Gail so she can call in and participate. And she should have the opportunity.
As it is, if you be civilized, sir.
And she should be able to participate as a panelist participant, not just an attendee when she calls in, because you guys have spent time blocking. I'm speaking, sir. Why do you cut me off?
377-4490, extension 1580.
What was the extension again?
1580. Thank you.
While we're waiting for Gail to be able to participate in this government meeting of politicians, let's remember that what we just heard was the fact that the meeting started and certain people were allowed in and certain people were not allowed in. There was a significant amount of time where people like Joy and I were sitting there waiting outside the meeting, in the virtual meeting, but not allowed in the room. And to me, that would be a violation of not only common. I'm speaking. Why do you cut me off?
Mr. Bradley, that people were allowed in even after Mrs. Beers was there.
Yeah, but why were you cutting me off? I'm trying to express
I found the list.
I'm expressing the problem. Yeah, we're expressing the problem here, sir. The problem is that you were not letting people in the meeting. So I would like to make the motion right now that Larry Stern should be the host of this meeting as, please let me finish. I'd like to make the motion. This is not,
There is no other business other than on.
I understand that, but I would like to make a motion that we follow LASD policy and change the host from Mr. Cleaver,
It's not a
who,
person. Mr. Foeller, can you please?
it's a LASD policy. It's a motion. It's a motion to make sure that the Heighton School District Board member.
I believe right now, Mr. Bradley, you would be the only one violating what you consider your.
No, Mr. Cleaver, please don't cut me off. The LASD policy requires that the meetings be run by the government, not their subordinate employee that we are here to oversee. So I think that we should change the host of the meeting to Larry, who's accountable to the people, not Mr. Cleaver, who's accountable to no one because this board is a bunch of rubber stampers. Can I get a second on that motion, please, so that we can have a civilized meeting where board members are not interrupted and we can all get to the business at hand? Can we please do that?
This meeting was advertised, please.
The meeting was advertised to discuss personnel issues only, not used.
Thank you.
And again, this is not discussing any issue other than the operation of the meeting.
Bradley,
Are you telling me I cannot make this motion, sir?
I'm telling you it wasn't advertised for that.
I understand that, but it's part of the governance of the meeting. Are you telling me that I can't make a motion and somebody else can't second this motion to get a vote to decide to forward with this meeting in a civilized manner so we do not allow a subordinate employee to have access to
I'm telling
prevent
you that Mr. Stern doesn't have to recognize this motion.
I understand he doesn't have to, and that bully can decide what he wants to do, but I have the right to make the motion. Someone has the right to make a second, and he can either honor the
Only if
motion.
recognized.
Excellent. Can someone please make that second so we can at least have it recognized? My suggestion is my suggestion is the motion. Let me make sure it's clear. The motion is to follow LASD policy and require the president of the board to host and run the meeting. Thank you.
Was that a motion, Dave? I'll second that.
Yes, it's a motion to follow the LASD policy and ensure that our president, Larry Stern, hosts and runs the meeting.
Council, that meeting is not recognized. Thank you.
Why is that not recognized, Larry?
Public comment? on-
Wait, Mr. Stern, you're cutting me off again. I asked a question of Mr. Stern.
The meeting was advertised for personnel issues only. I'm not gonna bring up any other items during this meeting.
This is not an item. This is proper governance, sir. Why are we violating our own policy? Why would you violate your own policy? And we're waiting for Miss Mahalik to show up. Oh, Miss Mahalik showed up.
Been able to enter the meeting.
And anybody.
But Larry, why don't you follow the law?
Mr. Cleaver, order please, Mr. Cleaver, has Mrs. Mahalik joined the meeting?
Yes, she has.
So can we get proper compliance with the school law, Larry?
Comment on agenda.
Larry, can we,
Only item that will be is at the end of the meeting.
Larry, can we just at least let's meet the governance before anybody can open up a violation of the Sunshine Act at any time. It's not a violation of our advertising.
Mr. Stern.
We should follow the law, Larry.
On the personnel item A, I need a motion and a second, that Jane Paternio shall be hired as administrative assistant to the superintendent at a prorated salary of $47,000, all term in alliance with the Act 93 agreement. Motion and a second.
Hold on.
What happened to the public comment?
There was no public comment submitted for the agenda.
I make a motion that we postpone this motion. I'd like a second for lack of information and the fact that 20 people applied for this position and only a relative of Sue Salerno's was put in front of this board. You know, Larry Stern's friends.
Yeah.
Can I get a second on that?
I believe we had Mr. Wentz with.
He had a first. We didn't get a second on his, but we do have a first and a second on the motion to postpone the rubber stamping of a hire that we didn't even look at all the other people that applied. We didn't even look at hiring from within or elevating from within of people that are already employed within the district. And this board has no knowledge other than tonight's motion of this person. No knowledge was provided, right?
I'm seconding that because for 2 years now, since I was at the PSBA conference talking to other board members, they advised me that boards should be the people who are hiring the employees, and the administration should not be involved in that. I think we should, as the board.
I would like Ms. Beers that if you could reach out to PSBA.
No, please don't interrupt her. She was speaking. She was speaking.
Interesting that administration should not be involved in hiring.
The administration has zero authority to hire. That's right within the Pennsylvania School Code. We all know that.
Recommendation, Mr. Bradley.
I understand, but it doesn't even show as a recommendation. It just shows as a motion.
It's more than a recommendation. If we haven't seen any of the other resumes and we don't know anything about any of the other candidates, it's not a recommendation. This is the only choice.
That's called a coronation, right? Not a recommendation. Look, guys.
Motion in a second.
No, hold on, to postpone, and we're having that discussion. Hold on, but we're having the discussion. Hold on. We're having. Hold on. You're having.
Calm down.
Yeah, slow down. You're having a discussion about the motion and the second to postpone a relationship of hiring individuals within the district by a board of directors that have not seen nor vetted any of the participants that are eager to have this $47,000 salary, nor the skill sets of these people. And are we hiring the best individual or the most favoritism? I'm looking at the Lehighton Area School District Auditor General's report, where it describes the number of opportunities of non-compliance to Pennsylvania School Code. And it's talking about how this board is unaware. And this is another great example of how this board is shoving down the throats of these people that have to pay for these people the only option without even reviewing other options. And this board is unaware. Ask Wayne how many other people applied, who they were, and what he thought about them, because he's the one placing this hire. It's wrong, guys. You know it to be wrong. Everyone in this room knows it to be wrong. But you have a motion and a second. Let's listen to the people in the room, especially Sue Salerno, since I believe this is one of her relatives.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to table the hiring. Ms. Barbarich, could you roll call vote, please?
Mr. Stern,
No.
we have people from the audience who are requesting to speak.
Which is a requirement of the Sunshine Act, Larry. Larry, come on, let's follow the law, man. Jeez.
Jason?
Yes. Good evening, guys, ladies and gentlemen. How long does this circus have to go on? That we cannot just have a simple, we have enough issues going on that we have to keep going and going and going and going and going.
Until the five start voting.
There was a motion.
Lawful
made.
compliance, Jason. Until we get lawful compliance, the government has to be lawful.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
You asked a question, I'm answering.
But I wasn't finished, sir.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You made a motion. The board was trying to go forward with your motion, and you're still blabbering on. Let everybody just do what they need to do.
Oh,
Why
like
can't this
spend $3 million?
or 75,000?
Well, this position is probably, this position's probably closer to $100,000.
The board, yous all have to decide. You know, there's bigger problems, and until you 9 folk decide to start, working together to fix these issues, nothing other than us as the heightened citizens being made out to be, excuse my words, morons, because we've put ourselves in debt, and all you do is sit here and bicker back and forth. This is sickening. We have been in this meeting for minutes, and all we have done is bickered over, oh, they didn't let us in on time. But everybody, stop, please.
Jason, we're looking for lawful compliance, and that's the point. So letting people in on time is part of lawful compliance.
You're not looking
Look,
for nothing. You're looking for working, talking around in circles.
no, we're not. We're looking.
Looking and talking. You're looking to bully and talk around in circles and make everybody out. You're looking for something else to start picking a fight with.
No, sir. We're just no.
Dave,
I'm telling you, Jason. I'm telling you. My turn.
Stop.
My.
Dave, just stop.
No, sir. My turn. I will not stop.
Fix the problem.
The problem is lawful compliance. The problem. It's not belittling. It's not lawful compliance. Honors. It is immoral and it is evil not to be in compliance with the law. That would be evil and immoral.
You are part of this. Fix it. Don't sit back and sit there and send out your emails, your YouTubes. Fix the problem.
I am right now. We're holding them accountable.
You are not holding anybody accountable.
We need to hold them accountable. I know you.
Talking in circles.
No, sir. I'll be very straightforward. Sir, just give me a second. I'll be very straightforward. You don't have to listen, but I will. I do have to speak. I do have to speak. You don't have to listen. There's 51 other attendees. We have.
Mr. Roeder, I did mute Mr. Bradley. Do you have any other questions? Because I'm sorry, and I apologize.
I'm responding to Mr. Roeder, sir. Please don't mute a board member. I'm responding. Do not mute a board member. I'm responding. The response is in Auditor General's report on page 27. The board, Mr. Cleaver, I'm speaking. So the board.
Please let the public comment on this item.
No, this is a public comment on this item. I'm talking to Mr. Jason Roeder first.
Mr. Shaner?
Yes, I'm wondering how many people applied for the position, and how many resumes did the board look at?
20, and we saw none but this one, and we didn't even see this resume until today.
Okay, may I ask what the process should be for this?
The process should be.
Completed interviews as in the past.
The
and other employees.
The process should.
Interview committee. We would paper screen, and then we would do the interviews. Most of the interviews have 2 rounds. Sometimes if it's a part-time position, there's not 2 rounds. And then the recommendation will be made to the board for those individuals from the interview committee.
But the responsibility of hiring and firing in every contract, like this contract, is the board's.
Anything else regarding that? I'm sorry.
So the board does not typically review resumes of
Mr.
candidates?
Shaner, unfortunately,
The board does.
when we hired,
The board should.
When we hired our last business administrator who left, Mr. Bradley posted resumes that had cell phone numbers, private addresses, and those things on websites. To the point, I'm responding to the question. To the point where we had an email from one of the candidates who was concerned and threatened legal actions if it wasn't taken down. And actually, I believe she sent that right back to the individual in charge of that website.
So can the resumes?
But the policy didn't change. It was always like that. The board has seen no resumes. It's not like we saw resumes up until that.
No, but I'm giving an example of a situation that happened.
But the situation as well, Mr. Cleaver, as a government agent, representative of the, please let me just have 10 seconds. I won't even have to yell if you just be nice about allowing people to have the chance to speak. Stop it.
Mr. Shaner, we're
I'm trying to help. I know, Mr. Shaner, I agree. So, and we all agree, the right process is supposed to be that the board identifies the position to be open and identifies the skill set of the individual that is going to be needed to fill the position. And then the board also identifies what the position is. And then it gives it to the administration and say, go find us candidates. Go find us candidates. And then they can look at the candidates. They send in all the applicants to the board and say, look, we weeded it out to here, here, and here, and here's why. And we can look at that. But the government agency has a responsibility to not only review those applicants, but also meet with their constituents in reference to those applicants. This is a public employment position, right?
Individuals
So
are not
much like,
supposed to attend
much,
interviews.
yeah, but much like hiring somebody, you would have this conversation within the community because these are very valued positions. And when you look at the hiring that has taken place in this government for years, and these government hires are contracts, and then you look at the Auditor General's report where it says no board approval, no contract monitoring on page 27, you're talking about a board that is taking an absentee ownership of this district. And they're allowing their superintendent to make all these decisions to the point where of the 20, only one person was provided. And it just, I mean, coincidentally happens to be related to other people. And Larry's answer was, hey man, we live in a small town. And I get some of that. But the reality is we're looking for the best candidates. And it should be blind to those individual items.
Public comment, so I think that there's individuals.
But it's a board meeting.
Mr. Sheehan, I don't want to.
No, I have another question. In light of the Attorney General's report, would it not be possible and probably prudent to give the board copies of resumes of candidates and redact personal information?
Yes, sir, as requested. Yet ignored and not provided. And not only that, but we used to have a personnel committee. And once I entered the board, that committee has never met in public. That committee has no minutes. That committee has no meeting records. And theoretically, we still get recommendations to the board from that committee that is meeting in private. This is wrong. It needs to be corrected. It's corrupt.
You get a recommendation from the administrative staff and the interview.
No, we actually have records of recommendations from the personnel committee. We had recommendations, and then I brought it up to say that's illegal, and then they corrected it to make it that it only comes from the administration. And those corrections are taking place as we correct the corruption in the district. As we correct the corruption in the district, you guys are definitely more cornered, and now you don't have anywhere to hide because we've exposed this. It's transparent. Everyone is seeing it. We appreciate your participation. So glad these are Zoom meetings.
Sorry, Mr. Sheehan, what was that?
Are you going to answer my question, please?
I didn't get a chance to. So
Okay.
you can. So,
Do you need me to repeat it?
yes, please.
Sure. I said, in light of the Auditor General's report, would it not be possible and or prudent to provide the board with the resumes for the candidates with redacted personal information so there's no opportunity for that to be posted online?
You mean the candidates with the recommendation? Or
Yes.
Yes, we tried doing that actually.
No, not the recommendation candidate, sir. That's only one. We only got one. Hold on. Mr. Shaner, please correct your question because you're allowing him to have a cornering spot he only gave one.
Mr. Bradley, yes. So the recommendation, we were showing that we were attempting to show the entire board in exec session the qualifications that made her the number one candidate and also the recommendation of why it was coming. So we did try that in exec session. Unfortunately, all I was able to do was screen share. I was not, believe it or not, I was not able to get a word in edgewise during executive session.
So would it not be then also possible to, if you're saying that you're sharing what qualifications she has that make her the best candidate, would it also not make sense to show the other candidates that she's compared against?
Correct. I mean, you can't show the qualifications of a single person and then say they're the best one without bringing forth the others.
That's correct.
So you're going to make your. So I guess my question is then the paper screening is all you're recommending then?
No, sir. It's a process. It's a hiring process. This is the largest hiring entity in the county. It's a process. It should be professional and it should be done like myself as a professional, that you review the qualifications of the person that you're trying to hire. We have a problem right now where brand new buildings were provided for, yet we, as a board, hired someone that has admitted that needs more training and qualifications. If we're gonna, let me finish. It wasn't a mission.
Continue to put words in people's mouths.
I am not.
The comment was that he would be willing to take any type of training the district offered. So don't say that there was an admission that you feel that someone didn't know how they.
He's over his head, and we
That is
know it.
incorrect.
He's over his head, and we know it. So we're working on that. We're working on that. But my point is, if you let me finish the statement, and if you don't like my statement, that's fine. You have your opinion. But the statement is, we need to hire people that are qualified for the position, and we need to hire the best qualified people for that position that bring the ability to the district. That has not necessarily taken place in the past, and we're trying to elevate this district to doing that process. And any large corporation would have HR managers, would have people that help in this area, either as a part-time or full-time, or would hire external people to do that. This board is failing to oversee the contracts of this district. Each hire is a contract. It's part of either Act 93 or it's part of the other side. Mr. Cleaver, please stop interrupting a board member when he's trying to express the process of what's supposed to happen.
Yes, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so real quick, just want to make a couple points and ask a couple questions. I work in an industry where we totally rely on upward mobility. With that in mind, I do everything I can to make sure that when there's a void in our employees, we have the people within to backfill those jobs. My first question is, how many current employees applied for this job?
I want to make sure that that's not more of an executive session. I'm going to ask Mr. Foeller on that one.
If it's not identifying anybody in particular, I don't see any issue with it.
Thank you. There was one.
So of that one, that's fine. That's good that there was eager to promote from within with that person one better job. Now, my second question is, what are we doing as a district to assure that we have these people, that we don't have to go outside the district to get this talent that we could potentially be voided from? Do we provide our employees the ability to move up is my main question.
They're posted and they have an option to apply. Anyone could apply within if they would choose to.
I think he's asking the question if you know.
They have to go through a process. So even for professional employees, when we have positions where people are interested, even current employees would have to apply for them and go through a process.
And now I understand that. So my main question was, let's say we're an assistant to the assistant. Let's just say that. Do we offer those employees, current employees, the ability to get the training and the schooling paid for by our district to assure us that we wouldn't be in a pinch at some point and we could promote from within? That's my question.
The support trainings are very different when you're looking at positions such as this one. So many of the support positions are specific to either building assistants, or maybe they may be in payroll, they may be in curriculum. So they're specific by area. But if they would wish to go for additional training in maybe an HR class or something, we would honor that. Our intermediate unit does offer training.
Perfect. And that's what I was getting at. I mean, knowing how many people are involved in industry and professional people that are in our town, we all know how important it is to have the people within to keep the ball rolling. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And to that note, Mr. Kemmerer, typically a large organization as this would know. Hold on a second. I'm answering Mr. Kemmerer. Mr. Cleaver, please. Barb, can you just hold on a second? Barb, can you hold on until I make a comment to Mr. Kemmerer, please?
Fine, make it quick.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kemmerer, to that point as well, when individual employees are known to be exiting the district, in advance of that, more advertising and more opportunity to pull from within the community would also be a value to the district, rather than just getting 20 people to apply. I mean, it's a very difficult time currently economically, and this is a very coveted position. So I'm sure that there's more than 20 qualified people in this district alone that have a Bachelor of Science able to meet this requirement of this task. Thank you. Thank you, Barb, by the way.
Okay. I understand the weeding out process and the interview process and all that. But I would think that in a position such as this, that more than one person, maybe 3, 4, or 5 out of 20, would be given to the board so that they could make the decision. That certainly seems to be a better way to handle it than just bringing one forth. Because it is up to the board who they hire, and when you bring one, there is nowhere to go except for them to say, no, we're not hiring this person. There should be choices, and the board should be making them. That's all I have to say.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I just would like to reiterate what Barb had said. If there's only one person brought for the decision-making process, I think it's really counterproductive to have a vote on just one person. I mean, hasn't the board, or hasn't, I guess, the administration thought about possibly recommending maybe 3 candidates out of the 20 that applied? I mean, to just recommend one, I think is really, really suspect, guys. I mean, you should at least be looking at 2 or 3 candidates. I mean, in all reality, everybody knows the financial situation of this district. So not only do we want the best person for the position, you know, the most qualified, of course, but surely there has to be more than one person out of the 20 that are highly qualified for something like this.
Thank you, Tom. And it is very evident, as you mentioned, almost scary evident, when you realize what the Auditor General had described in reference to the Pennsylvania School Code. And hold on, I'm speaking, sir. Mr. Cleaver, I'm responding back to a person that has addressed this board. It is, sir. It is. It's a board meeting. We have a responsibility to answer our constituents, sir. If you listen to what Joy said...
Is there any way he can be muted while I speak, please?
Yeah, you can, Sue, but the reality is I'm still speaking, so it's not anyone else's turn yet. And I'd like to hear from Joy. I'd like to hear, I know, but I'd like to hear from Joy, sir.
Mr. Bradley. Hello, Mr. Bradley.
Go ahead,
this
Sue.
is Sue Salerno, the
Hi,
person
Sue.
that you keep bringing up in your emails today.
Go ahead, Sue. Yeah, go ahead.
I would have checked your facts a little more straight than you did, because Janine Partenio is not my immediate relative. Janine is a relative by marriage. Also, if you checked Janine's credentials, Janine is probably overqualified for this position from her years with other school districts, her years working in Doyle Heffley's office. As far as being out of district, she and her family, as well as her extended family, live in the district of Lehighton. And my question to you would be, if she wasn't related to me, as you say, would she have met your credentials for the job? Because personally, I found out about her even applying for the job this past Saturday, and the first thing I said to her is, you're absolutely crazy to even want to have to deal with Dave Bradley and his emails a day. And my next thing is, if somebody on this board can please tell me how to get Mr. Bradley to stop putting my name in his crazy emails, because it's harassment and he's not but a bully.
Thank you, Sue. Now, you asked a question directly. I'd like to take the time to respond. Mr. Cleaver, she asked a question of a board member, and I have a right to respond. Mr. Cleaver, Mr. Stern, I'm going to respond. Please don't talk over me. I want to respond to Sue. Sue, please, sir, please, we have a responsibility to answer our constituents. We have a responsibility, especially when they ask a direct question. So, I'm going to, please, sir, you have a
on the suspension of the hiring of Mrs. Paternio.
I make a motion that we let Mr. Bradley have a right to speak. Hold on. I know, but I have a motion that I'd like to be able to speak and answer a constituent that asks the question prior to ignoring and silencing that community member.
Mr. Nathan Foeller?
I'm sorry, I'm so puzzled here. Are we voting on the motion to delay
It's the
this?
motion to table the hiring of Janine Persiano.
Then it's a no for me.
Mr. Stephen Holland?
No.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik? Mrs. Gail Mahalik? Yes. Mrs. Rita Spinelli?
No.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
No.
Mrs. Joy Beers?
Yes?
Mr. Richard Belts?
Table it, yes.
Mr. Bradley?
In compliance with the Auditor General's report, most definitely the board should be aware prior to making such decisions, therefore to be tabled for lack of information.
Mr. Larry Stern? 5-4 motion carries. We have not learned anything.
Please don't rubber stamp this thing.
Motion denied.
You're shoving this, you're rubber stamping this. They didn't even look at the people.
Anything from the Attorney General's report? Nothing.
Well, we did learn, hold on, we learned that they spent millions of dollars. They spent millions of dollars. They went over budget and they rubber stamped the administration without oversight.
By Nathan. We have a first by Mr. Wentz, a second by Nathan, that Janine Paternio shall be hired as the administrative assistant to the superintendent at a prorated salary of $47,000, all terms in alliance with the Act 93 agreement.
Excuse me, I have a question. How long is that salary till the end of the school year?
It's an annual salary, Gail.
Annual.
I would like to comment on this motion.
There's nothing stopping you. And unfortunately, we can't stop you either. Thank you.
Good. So I'm gonna read directly from the Auditor General's report, and I'm gonna use my right as a board member to read this information so that it is ensured that this board hears this because it is important. That they listen to the Auditor General that found this district in non-compliance with Pennsylvania School Code, neglecting their duty in their oath of office. And this is an exact example. So I'm going to start with page 1. Performance audit. Lehighton Area School District, Carbon County, Pennsylvania, October 20th, October of 2020. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Auditor General. Eugene A. D. Pasquale, Auditor General. Page 2. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Auditor General. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. 17120-0018. Facebook, Pennsylvania Auditor General. Twitter, at PA Auditor Gen. www.paauditor.gov. This is the person you're supposed to be listening to, guys. A letter written on September 9th. Eugene D. Pasquale, Auditor General, to Jonathan J. Cleaver, Superintendent. Now, this is a month before we got it, right? This is a month before we, as a board member, received this information. I don't know how long it took to publish this application and find these 20 people and review them. But it was pretty quick because Melissa only tendered her resignation recently. But I'll continue proceeding. I agree that this report, I agree that this report is 49 pages and we're only on page 2, but just be patient. Mr. Jonathan Cleaver, Superintendent, Lehighton Area School District, 1000 Union Street, Lehighton, PA, 18235. Larry Stern, President, Lehighton Area School District, 1000 Union Street, Lehighton, PA, 18235. And to answer Sue, to answer Sue, it has nothing to do with the individual that's being offered. It has to do with the process. That's it. And the process here in the Auditor General's report.
Reading the whole report, Mr.
I didn't say I was reading the whole report. Why would you assume? Why would you assume I'm reading? Why would you assume I'm reading the whole report? Please don't silence the board member.
You just told me it's a 47-page.
It is important to know how long it is. I'm only on page 1. But even on page 1, it said the audit found that this district had 2 findings. And they were very simple findings. And when you look at this report, I don't need to read all 49 pages to you, Larry. I'm sure you might have read it. I hope you read it. But there's 2 findings, it says on the first page. And the first finding that they talked about was the lack of government oversight over contracts. Hiring an individual is a contract. We have a negotiation taking place with the teachers union. It's a contract. We're supposed to be overseeing this. You have neglected this duty as a director. You have abdicated your authority to your wife's boss, the superintendent. Let me finish. Please let me finish. You have abdicated.
I have no idea what I'm doing, so don't say what I'm doing if you don't know.
I do know what you're doing. You're abdicating the authority to the superintendent, your wife's boss, and you have abdicated that authority. Excuse me, you have abdicated that authority. You have abdicated that authority I'm speaking, sir. You abdicated that authority to a marriage by relative of Sue Solera.
Rita Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz?
Yes.
Mr.
Larry, did
No, we need to change our processes.
Mr. Richard Belts?
Abstain, lack of information, I'd like to hear about the other candidates.
Mr.
Yes,
David
so would
Bradley?
I.
everyone in this room would hopefully respect that this board should hear that I am, excuse me, I'm trying to identify what's taking place here. This is Larry Stern and his crony 5 pushing through without following a process and without the proper information. So I think we need to abstain from lack of proper information. And that's my vote. Abstention, lack of proper information provided by our board of directors.
I think Janine will be an excellent fit for this job. I've reviewed her qualifications and her resume, and I spoke to the administration, and so yes, for me.
Mr. Larry Stern? Do you want to? 5-4, motion carries. 2 abstentions.
On item B,
Again, the community had been served a disservice by the 5 that failed to honor and respect the Pennsylvania school code
school year.
and their oath of office.
Motion and a second, please.
So moved by Nathan.
Second.
Second by Rita Spinelli. Any comment on the additional school bus drivers?
Yes, I have a comment when you get a chance.
Comment, sir?
You should have let the public have comment on the last motion, even though you had it at the beginning of the meeting. They didn't really have a chance to enter that unless they emailed it. It was wrong. You should have opened up the floor, by the way. But on this Georgia's Transportation Company bus driver employment list, did the district review all of their driving qualifications and their credentials? Because we heard in Scranton at the Auditor General's report that they had some issues related to those qualifications and qualifications of bus drivers. And when I read our Auditor General's report, it talks about how people like Wayne and Steve and Larry failed to honor their oath, failed to follow Pennsylvania school code. And on page 27, let me pull up 27 here for you. Page 27, it says specifically, it says very specifically, no board approval and no contract monitoring. It's one of our responsibilities to monitor these contracts. So when Steve Holland failed to do his job, and when Wayne Wentz totally failed to do his job, and the Auditor General spanked you, you should honor that responsibility going forward, which you just didn't do in the last motion, and you should at least check to find out whether or not these people have met their requirements. Have they? Larry? Steve? Wayne? I know that I can't tell because the information was not provided to me.
Mr. Bradley, the information of bus drivers presented to the administration office, myself and Mr. George go through them to make sure all the required paperwork is there, because we have to have them on file here as well, which is, if you would read the Auditor General's report instead of picking and choosing, you'll see that that was one of the parts that were audited and there was no findings because we are in complete compliance with transportation. So again, these have been reviewed by myself and Mr. George, actually in the administration office, and we do that before any names are presented to the board. Thank
And Mr. Cleaver, I greatly respect that. I'm glad you apparently read it. No one else made these comments. But I'd like to make the statement that since you did read this report, it is good because it also shows where we no longer trust you to do these things because of your actions. And therefore, I think it's important that we continue to oversee and confirm, trust, and verify. But on my situation for you, I have untrust and make sure we verify what's taken place. And regretfully, you do not take the transparency route where you provide that information to your board and say, look, board, I did my job. Here is the information. You can move forward. When you don't do that, sir, that's why you are untrustworthy. And then when we find out in an Auditor General's report that contracts are signed without board approval, hidden from the board, and transfers are made for millions of dollars, wire transfers, and shoved in underneath bill pay without the board being aware, and the past board of directors in this Auditor General being identified as unaware board of directors. I am unaware that these three people meet that requirement. Why did you not provide that to your board with this motion as a pertinent document to ensure that that took place?
The information in these documents is private. It is protected. There is health information. There's also privileged driver's license information and social security information.
And Mr. Foeller, can you please respond to Mr. Cleaver that a board of director government agency overseeing the district's hiring of every contract, hiring of every individual, and responsibility requires us to ensure that these credentials are met. If you need to redact things, so be it. But a board of director, an elected official, a government elected official, to ensure you're doing your job when an Auditor General's report says you did not, and we no longer trust you because you did not, and you snuck things in, that requires some oversight. And this board lacks that oversight. Larry, right, his wife's boss is not being overseen. Mr. Wentz is not taking the responsibility to ensure the children are protected inside of the athletic committee. They're not overseeing to make sure that there is supervision. Mr. Holland is failing.
Bus driver motion, please.
No, we have a thing to adjust. You can't make this motion without reviewing this information. Why don't you postpone it? All right, I make a motion. We postpone this until such time that the district board can have the information required to make an educated decision.
We have a motion in a second, correct? Correct.
Can I please, I'm making a motion. Now that we discussed this motion, hold on, excuse me. Now that we're discussing this motion, we found out that this board does not have the information. Hold on a second.
Let him finish and get this over with.
No, wait a second. I'm making a motion and we postpone this until such time that the board, excuse me, sir, I'm speaking. I'd like to postpone this motion until we make sure that this board has the accurate information to make an informed decision prior to taking official action. Can I get a second on that motion, please? Because a board,
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fact that the board does not have the information prior to making this motion that requires us under Pennsylvania School Code. I need a second, please.
Is this for the school bus drivers?
School bus drivers, yes, please.
I asked for a roll call vote.
I know you did. I'm trying to tell you that you really are Mr. Stern. Lar, come on, man. You really need to do your job. You can't block transparency. You can't block the responsibility just by shutting people down. You're not allowed. That's the bully, man. We have a responsibility. We have a process. The board is supposed to make educated decisions. Luigi Di Francesco versus Pencrest. Palm, Ackerman, all of them. The judge said you need to make an informed decision. You need to follow the law. You're making a decision without the information. You're blindly trusting a person that the Auditor General said through the report is untrustworthy, that failed, that had non-compliance of Pennsylvania School Code.
Mr. Badley, let me read you a fact.
Well, wait, why don't you address my question first?
December 24th, 2014, a wire transfer was made. The board was told about it, wasn't even told about it. The board was approved the bills to be paid on January 26, 2015 by a 9-0 vote. And the wire transfer was made on Christmas Eve a month before. Does that sound proper protocol to you, sir?
No, and you were on the board back then, sir. That's why you're not doing your job. That's why you should resign. That's why Wayne should resign. That's why Steve Holland should resign. That's why Andy Yenser's no longer a member of this board. He knows it. That's why Gloria Bowman is no longer a member of this board. The community knows it.
Okay, we're back
Stop
to
it. You're back to the reality that you have a job to do. Follow the procedure.
the additional
No, follow the procedure, Larry. Follow the procedure. You can't. You need to make an educated decision. You're as a board.
Mrs. Karpowicz, please.
Mr. Stern, you have a responsibility to make an informed decision. You're making an uninformed decision. You're not informed about this decision. You know it. You're blindly trusting your wife's boss.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli.
Am I voting to approve the bus drivers?
Yes.
You're uninformed.
Yes.
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
Yes.
Ms. Joy Beers.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts.
Abstain.
Mr. David Bradley.
Abstention from lack of information. The board has a responsibility to follow Pennsylvania school code and not rubber stamp Larry's wife's boss.
Mr. Nathan Foeller.
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik.
On item C, I need a
No.
motion and a second to accept the resignation of the following employee, Megan Crispin, confidential secretary to the business administrator, October 9th, 2020. Need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
I'll second it.
A motion by Mrs. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Holland. Comment on the item C.
I have a question. Is she leaving the district or just leaving this position?
She is leaving the district.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to thank Megan for her time that she was here, working within the business office. She did a great job. She worked very well with Patty while she was here and helped with the transition. And she's also has assisted with the intern business manager currently that we have and helped get him started as well. And I just want to thank her publicly.
Second, motion from Mr. Brown, Mr. Favor, it's been a tough position for her to do, but she's done very well. So thank you very much, Megan.
I agree. I've always found Megan to be pleasant and professional, and we will miss her.
I think. Hold on. I think.
For his time of service here.
Yeah, I think Megan did a great job. It's really amazing. But in the eyes of this relationship, small town process, how is she related to Janine? Does anybody know?
That's not really appropriate for a public meeting.
I understand what you're thinking, but the reality is it is a public meeting, and we are talking about this rubber stamp blind trust that this thing goes through. And you talked about 20 people, and we talked about 20 people.
Relationships before they leave the district.
And we talk about 20 people putting in a resume, and one of them said, "Wait a second, why do you guys shut us off, man? I'm having a conversation. We're having a conversation."
Mr. Wayne Wentz.
Yes, also with regrets. Megan did a great job.
Ms. Joy Beers.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts.
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley.
She did a great job, yes, but this board still is not doing a great job.
Nathan Foeller.
Yes, with regret.
Mr. Stephen Holland.
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik. Thank you, and thank you for your service, Megan. Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes. On item D.
9-0, motion carries.
Hey, Larry, how did we get a special meeting for all these quick hires, but we didn't have a special meeting when we needed busing in this district, when we didn't have the budget, when we were having trouble with the Auditor General's report that came out a month ago? Larry, I'm just asking. Larry, I asked you a question, Larry.
Business administrator expected immediately. I need a motion and a second, please.
Are you ignoring my question, Larry?
Second by Nathan.
I have a first by Mrs. Spinelli, a second by Mr. Foeller. Questions on item D,
Who made this recommendation?
the administration.
Why is it not listed as a recommendation from the administration for you guys to blindly trust and rubber stamp?
Oh, it's not.
And reality, Larry, why didn't we get a special meeting when the Auditor General's report came out so people could question it?
I'm not entertaining that question right now.
I know, but why, Larry? Why? How
I'm
come?
not entertaining that question because it's not appropriate to the motion on the.
Well, it kind of is, because in that Auditor General, it is, because in the Auditor General's report, it talks exactly about this process of rubber stamping and blindly trusting.
Great. Thank you, Larry. I'm just curious, in the past, this position was clearly thought to be important, and that this person had tasks to do. How can this secretary position be eliminated? Like what will happen with the duties of this position?
We had information that was disseminated via the executive session, that was supposed to be disseminated via the executive session about what we were doing in the office from a personnel perspective, but unfortunately that could not be discussed because someone took over the meeting and would not let us get through the business, Joy. So maybe some other time we can talk about
Well,
it.
I could just comment a little bit on that, Ms. Beers, too, as well. We are looking to do some realigning and some shifting. So the other part is, too, as you're aware, we do not have a current full-time business manager. We're still going through that process. So we thought it'd be best, to see what their recommendations are once, we do move forward with a business manager to bring to a recommendation to the board. But at this point, we are reassigning responsibilities within the administration office.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, Karpowicz?
Mr. Wayne Wentz,
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Mr. Abeers,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Belts,
Yes.
Mr. David Bradley,
Yes.
Mr. Nathan Foeller,
Yes.
Mr. Stephen Holland,
Yes.
Mrs. Gail Mahalik,
Yes.
Mrs. Rita Spinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Larry Stern.
Yes.
9-0, motion.
We have courtesy of the floor, public comment. I think there was one submitted correctly.
Mr. Ryan Bowman.
I have Mr. Shaner is raising his hand too. Mr. Shaner?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
This question was for Mr. Fuller. I believe he had said he reviewed the administrative assistant's resume, and that she was and if I'm wrong, please correct me, the most qualified person for the position. Did you have an opportunity to review the other resumes?
We did. Mr. Shaner, I wanted to make sure it was clear. We did show that as in our exec session, her qualifications during our executive session. So that was presented. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear with that they did see that.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. This is Nathan. Yes, I was also referring to the resume that was shared in the executive session.
Okay, so you did not see, you don't know that she's necessarily the most qualified, you just know that she meets the qualifications, correct?
No, I did not review any other candidates, if that's what you're asking. I also, from my discussion with the administration, I agree with the recommendation. That's the reason I support her in the vote.
Why, Nathan? How do you agree with something you don't have any other information to? Please expand on that. How can you make that decision with only one person?
Well, I have a similar question for the board. The entire state is watching us, guys. Would it really be that difficult to review resumes, or at least present more than one person for a hire, just for transparency purposes? Would it be that hard?
It just took us an hour here to get through 4 very simple motions. If we come in with 5 candidates, I can imagine how long this would have gone on for. And I believe the recommendation of PSBA is for hires to be recommended by the administration. We support her here to approve or disapprove, and to be involved in the process there as we can.
Requires 4 recommendations? Is that what you just said?
No, that's not what I just said.
Oh, okay.
The recommendation comes to us from the administration, and that's a mode of operating that I'm very happy with and I feel is effective. If they feel that one person is the best candidate for the job, I think they would be doing us a disservice by dropping 5 candidates in front of us and hoping that we pick the one that they feel is the best.
Okay, so did I mishear you? What did you say about PSBA? and 4 recommendations?
No,
Oh,
I
they
believe
bring
that their
forth
recommendation.
Got
No, actually, yes, they bring the recommendations up.
Actually, it's the other way around. The PSBA expects the board to send the recommendation of the board to the administration and have them review them and see if they also recommend. It's a top-down situation. We answer to the citizens. The board hires the subordinate administration. So, and we're the only ones that can assign and hire and fire and change. Obviously, the board had to decide what positions are available and what positions are open and what those responsibilities are. These are all responsibilities of the board. Nathan's, no, I know, but Nathan's lack of understanding makes him unaware, much like what was written in the Auditor General's report,
Mr. Bradley, for your
that
comment on Mr.
that
Fuller.
Mr. Fuller's actions are irresponsible because he's making an uninformed decision when he's only been given one when he knows there's 20.
So while I can appreciate Mr. Fuller's understanding concerns about the time that it would take to bring forth more recommendations, don't you think you owe it to the constituency in the district to do just that? And that's all I have. Thank you.
This is Richard.
Wait, I'd like him to answer that. Nathan?
Ms. Bose? Ms. Bose?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Rusty, what did you say?
I just want to thank Brian for bringing that up because that's the way it should be happening here, and it's not the way it's been done in the past. I hope it's the way it will be done in the future.
Only after those 5 resign for being blind trust rubber stampers.
Ms. Bose?
Okay. I'm gonna try to put this succinctly. It's been an issue with transparency, not only to the board evidently, but also to the stakeholders, of which I'm one. Unfortunately, we had an incident where contracts were signed apparently without being read, costing the district $3 million. That should have been a wake-up call that more information needs to be given. Repeatedly, for at least the last 2 years, it has been asked that information on the bills be provided to the board. I assume that is happening a little better now. I don't know for sure. But certainly the fact that that wire transfer was just stuck in with the payment of the bills is ridiculous. It was $1.712 million. And the cost, from what I have seen, to the district was on the same page as the signature. I don't know how it could have been missed. Given that has occurred, and we are in such dire financial straits that we are not busing little children to school to help keep them safe, I think you people have to sit down and come up with a way to give more information for informed decisions to be made. What I heard here tonight was 5 people agreeing without the information that they really needed. Ms. Partenio may be perfectly suited for the job, but there were no other options given, and that needs to stop for the good of this district. Thank you.
And Barb, we're trying to have that happen. To answer your question, no, we are not given the information needed for the payment of bills. Many of the, excuse me, sir, I'm speaking to the constituent that addressed this board. You have a right, everyone has a right to talk to this constituent. She asked questions, we have a right to answer them.
At this time, there's no more
I know, but Larry, come on, Larry, you got to let the person speak. So no, we don't get all the information, Barb. We're still trying it. We have 19 right to know appeals taking place. Trying to get information from this administration is being blocked by Larry's wife's boss.
Yes, Janine?
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
Janine.
sure can.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Janine. I just wanted to introduce myself. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity. Let you know that I do have 20 years of clerical experience. 10 of those years are at the executive level. I am currently supporting both the superintendent and assistant superintendent at Northwestern Lehigh School District. I am also currently the assistant secretary to the board. I am also assisting with the support of our food service department, our technology department, and school security. I'm also maintaining the budget for both the superintendent and assistant superintendent. I am a resident of Lehighton, and previous to my work at Northwestern Lehigh, excuse me, I was a district constituent outreach specialist with the Pennsylvania House of Representatives here in Lehighton also. I just wanted to let you know that I look forward to the opportunity to support the staff and students of my own community and get to know each of you. I hope each of you can take the time to get to know me personally and not based off of any assumptions. I am not related to Megan Christman, and I am also not directly related to Sue Salerno. So I just wanted to let that be known. And if anyone has any questions, you can certainly feel free to ask. Thank you.
I have one. How are you related if it's not directly?
I'm related through marriage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janine, for coming on and speaking and accepting, and we really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you as well. At this point, there are
I think it was just clear of the, as unfortunately we couldn't get to all those work experience that she had that makes her the most qualified for this position. But I do appreciate her for coming on and sharing that with the entire board and the community as well. So I just want to thank her personally.
And Mr. Cleaver, you'd be more trustworthy if you just provide some transparency to your board, because according to the Auditor General's report, you are no longer trustworthy.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute, I have a comment.
So moved.
Second, Gail, make your comment.
We talked about last night at the financial meeting that we were gonna discuss finding bus transportation for the remaining kids in Lehighton, at least for the winter.
No, we could not, because this item was for personnel only this evening.
She's having a public comment. She has a First Amendment right to make any public comment in a meeting. Thank you very much. You can't take action on it, I would agree, but she can definitely make the comment.
I think, Mr. Bradley, I know you don't.
Please ask Mr. Filer. You cannot step on her First Amendment rights to speak.
What we were addressing was that it was not brought up to have this discussion during this meeting because of the way the meeting was advertised. We understand this is public comment, but I believe Mr. Stern was trying to explain that it was not discussed, that it was not explained that it was going to be discussed at this meeting because of the advertisement.
But here it's being discussed now because Gail brought it up. Bring it up. No, bring it up, Gail. You can bring it up.
It's only about
First Amendment.
12 days. We have our meeting on.
Okay, in that time period, the temperature's gonna go down to the 40s, and these poor little kids gonna walk all the way across town. I mean, I know one lady who is walking her children to school every morning with a stroller with the baby in it, walking to the kids to school, and then walking out there to pick them back up at the school because she doesn't have a car. Now that's for sure. I've heard about that. And there's probably a lot more that are doing that. So those little children are going to be out in the 40-degree temperatures walking.
So at that meeting, Gail, there was a recommendation to get a hold of George's to find out what the cost was so that come the October meeting, which is in, like Larry said, a couple days, 10 days, that we can address that at that time. Did anyone on this board heed that recommendation by the Finance Committee meeting and reach out to George's yet and get those numbers? I'd love to hear that someone's being responsible to protect these students and save the community. by reviewing such
Maybe
things.
we could try to find out how much it costs to see if there's some way we could do it.
Mr. Foeller, I think you were assigned that task from the constituents. Did you accept that responsibility or not? Nathan, did you accept the responsibility to help protect the students?
Child, and my hands would get so cold and so frozen that I cried and I couldn't even do my work because my hands were frozen. And that's what these kids are going to be seeing this winter when it gets really cold.
Plus, you're going to have rain and kids coming into the school district wet, and you're going to have issues with the standard flu associated with all these kids coming into a local district, that we should try to protect their health to the best of their ability. And I think walking a mile and a half to school would be a little bit excessive. But Nathan, your constituency asked you to meet a task. Did you accept that responsibility, and did you move that ball forward so that we can be prepared come October's board meeting? Nathan?
Mr. Bradley, once again, I believe your memory of the events and discussions of last night are different from mine.
Yeah, I know. You have a selective memory. You watch the finance committee meeting, but at the same time, and I hope this meeting was being recorded like it's supposed to be, like all the other ones are supposed to be. But did you or did you not call, and are you making efforts in that direction, or are you not making efforts in that direction? Did you assign it to the administration to make efforts in that direction? Can the skillful Janine make efforts in that direction for us?
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to
No,
adjourn.
no, no. I'm asking the question, Larry. We want to be prepared come October board meeting. Here's a great opportunity to hold the board accountable.
Board meeting to have information on that, certainly.
Will you have the information, Larry?
We'll have some information. for
Not
that.
some. Will you have the information to make a decision?
Information, I'm sure, will not meet your standards, Mr. Brown.
Will it meet yours, Larry?
Mr. Stern was-
Your standards are pretty low, Larry. Will it at least meet yours?
Motion and a second to adjourn.
Larry, will it meet yours low standard?